Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Let me know when you want to start.
Yeah, go for it.
Okay.
Yep.
All right. So, yeah, any questions? Sorry about the interruption. Any questions from Rules of the Road that, perhaps been niggling you in the past? Doesn't look like it. Okay. Towing. Okay, a special request from Martin. The system for towing in the club is what they call a herringbone system. So basically, there's a tow rope from behind the rib, and it's got a number of loops on it. So what will happen is, if you're the first boat that's going to be towed in, the rib will approach you, dangle a floating line over the side, and you will see a loop, and you will take your tow line through that loop and back to the mast. Take a couple of turns and then hold on to it. Don't tie it off. The idea is that if there is a capsize, then you can let go of the line and the boat will drift clear of the rib. Okay. Key points about this. So once you're attached, the tow line from the rib will be let out and a further loop will appear, and the next boat will attach itself in a similar manner. And the idea is, as the name implies, the herringbone system, the boats alternate between sides of the tow rope. The idea being is that they're clear of each other, of the boats that are behind or in front of them. Key things about this, absolutely key, is once you've made contact and you've got yourself sorted out with the tow line wrapped round the mast, is to lift your dagger board up. Life becomes very much easier with your dagger board up, and if you're struggling, it's usually because you haven't pulled it up. Now, the only thing I'd say about this is in a Pico, if you pull your dagger board up and don't take it out, then it will almost certainly clash with the kicking strap. And stopping the mainsail flapping in the breeze isn't something that you particularly want to happen. So generally, I would lift the dagger board completely out and put it in the bottom of the boat. The other thing to do is to sit towards the back of the boat. Again, that will stabilize the boat, make it a lot easier and less likely to veer around. And obviously what your aim is with all this is to avoid the other boats. And the easiest way to do that is to steer for the rib in front of you and not to deviate from that. It's just like going up a pommer when you're skiing. You don't wave around on the ski slope. You stick to where the pommer is. It all gets a bit embarrassing if you don't. Okay. Anything else that I need to include on that?
Where's your sail supposed to be at this point? Does it really depend on where you are in relation to the wind?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, generally the reason why you're being towed in is because there ain't any wind. So that makes it easy then, because whatever wind there is generated by you moving through the boat with a rib. In other words, it'll be straight over the bow. If it's not straight over the bow, well, whatever the conditions actually, the other useful thing to do, which I'll probably remind you of in a brief while, is to let go the kicking strap, because that will help depower the sail. All right, so basically centerboard, dagger board out in the bottom of the boat, sit towards the back of the boat, let the kicking strap off. And if you do those three things, hopefully life will be relatively straightforward for you. When you come to the pontoon, obviously don't all release from the herringbone at the same time. The ones towards the rib will almost certainly be approaching the pontoon sooner than the ones at the back of the toe. I hope so anyway. So the ones at the front will release first, and then gradually the others will do so in turn. Obviously, if you're in a boat that's on the opposite side to the tow line to the pontoon, you're just going to have to wing it until that tow line is clear. Any questions on that?
So at that point where you've then got your centreboard in the bottom of the boat, are you struggling to try and get it back in again, or do you just try and live without that?
I think with a useful pull, for what the rib driver will try and do is give you momentum, enough momentum to get you alongside. Generally, you would be unlucky to have a wind direction that's blowing directly from the pontoon. But if it is, then I think the rib driver will have to be, considerate of that. But you're right, if you need to get that daggerboard back in to sail that last little bit. But hopefully you've got enough momentum, or you get your hand over the side and start paddling. Any other points? Right. Okay, just quickly then. Tides, bramblemet.co.uk is a really useful website, and you can actually see the actual tide shown on a graphical form. So this is actual readings. So I've taken this print in 2021, and it's literally just before we're going down to the Pound to go sailing on a Tuesday evening or whatever it was. So that curve there is as a repeat of this one here. So that the only difference is that this is historical data. So it reached a peak at about 9:30 in the morning, and it started going out at about 1 o'clock in the afternoon. So in the evening, it will reach a peak at about 10 o'clock, 10:15 in the evening, at which point there won't be any tide over this stretch of time. So it goes 3/4 of an hour later than the morning, basically. So, but over that stretch of time, there won't be any tide at all. And that's a really useful feature. Particularly if you're going out without rib cover and you are concerned that there may be a drop in wind strength and you'll struggle to get back in the river, use this fact to go sailing when it's high water, and you can have this what we call a tidal stand, which lasts about 2.5 hours, which is plenty of time really to get some practice in. Okay, so use BrambleMet, have a look at the tide that is the historical data for that morning in this case, and then just add 3/4 of an hour, and that'll be what it is for the evening. Weather, you can get actual data off BrambleMet, and you've got the gusts in red and the general wind strength in blue. Wind Guru, you've got similar data, but this is forecast data, and you can see that the numbers sort of line up with what we're seeing there. And the Met Office, again, if you put in Warsash or Calshot Beach, which is what I quite often use, and look in the detail, you'll see both the main wind strength and the gust. And it's the gust that you're interested in, because that will be present. The gust will be present. And, if it's gusting 22 knots, for a lot of people, that will be above their maximum wind strength that they would be happy with. Don't base your assumption on the mean wind strength, which in this case is about 12 knots. It's 12 knots gusting 22 knots. So quite gusty. So that's the Met Office. If you look at the BBC app, you'll just see the lower number, the mean number. So it is worthwhile getting the Met Office app, and that gives you a good idea what to expect. As well as BrambleMet, which is real-time data. And again, you can see how gusty it is, and also the direction of the wind. Okay, last last thing, very last thing, coming alongside and beaching. So this is our pontoon with, in this case, a wind direction coming down the river. And somewhere out here, you should be preparing. So this is in clear water, well away from other dinghies. You should be preparing. And the best thing you can do is to let the kicking strap off. That's number one. Number two is to make sure you've got plenty of main sheet and that it's free to run. You haven't got any knots in it, tanglements, or it's around somebody's foot, or anything like that. And make sure that is ready to run. Quite often, if you've got a jib, let it go. You know, you're not going to go far. So just let it go. Indeed, some boats have a furling system, and that's even better because you can furl it out and get rid of it.
So when you say kicking strap off, you just mean slackened off. You don't mean trying to unfasten it from the mast, do you?
Correct, yeah. So basically the boom can lift, and if the boom can lift, it will depower the sail. So you don't need to let it unclip it, but you certainly should let it off. And again, make sure that it's slack. You know, pull some rope through and make sure it's slack. And then your aim is, when you come alongside, that you should be having sails that will flap. And the easiest way to test that, particularly a situation like this where the wind is coming down the river, is out here in deep water, turn the boat so it's pointing in the same direction as the pontoon that you want to come alongside, let the sail out and see if it will flap. All right, nothing easier than that. And you've got no congestion, you've got no other boats to worry about, you've got plenty of time. And if it doesn't work, then we have to think of another plan. And this might be what you do if the wind's coming down the river, is to drop the mainsail. Okay, and that can be a bigger task, but I have to say, I do it pretty much all the time. Okay, I drop the main in clear water, and that gives me a very benign return to the pontoon. And I would certainly recommend that if it's gusty and you're not very confident. Now, how do you drop the main in a pico? Well, you can do it by letting the kicking strap off, lifting the boom, and releasing the mainsail from the end of the boom. Then you'll suddenly say to yourself, well, I've lost my mainsail then, haven't I? I've got no control. But you make sure that you're upwind. That's the key thing. You'll make sure you're upwind. And as long as the tide isn't too strong, you can simply grab the sail a little bit. And just like I talked about a plank of wood, and you standing up on a plank of wood and you will be blown downwind, that will be what happens to you in a pico. And if it's really horrible conditions and maybe you've gone through a couple of capsizes that evening, that might be your easiest approach. Rather than try risking a dead downwind and hope, wing and a prayer that you're going to get it right, it quite often is the best way to do it. Get rid of the mainsail. One of the things I mentioned to you about was the dagger board. And now you can lift the dagger board and it will have an effect on the boat. And probably the most noticeable effect is if you're going upwind towards the wind. If you lift the dagger board at that point, the boat will slip sideways. And earlier on, I talked about it being useful if you were in gusty conditions, you were feeling uncomfortable with the gusts that were coming in. It's worth lifting the dagger board a little bit, and that reduces the amount of grip that the boat has on the water. In other words, when a gust hit, the boat slips sideways rather than being blown over. And you can use that fact coming alongside as well. If I was to lift the centerboard at this point in time, it would be advantageous. So let's just have a look at this. If I keep the dagger board down, I've let the kicking strap off, but the trouble is I'm trying to get into this tiny little slot that you can see. Or I can try this, but I can go aim for the beach directly. But you can see that the jib is flapping, but the mainsail isn't. So although I've let the kicking strap off, the mainsail is still filling.
Kapow.
Okay, now if you take the dagger board out, you can see that I'm pointing towards the winds. The sails are both flapping and the boat will slide sideways. And all I can say to that is give it a go. Give it a go in deep water, well clear of anybody else. Don't lift the dagger board completely out, but just lift it up and you will instantly see that effect. And that's a really useful tip if you want to slow the boat down and you're struggling to get the boat alongside, particularly somewhere like a beach, which is dead downwind. And I think that is it. Any questions from that? Stand in silence. Okay, so I think I say the top tip of this is that
you're going to try and take it. You're going to try and pace it a bit.
Yeah.
Eating it.
To be honest, I probably won't even eat it all.
Hey.
I probably won't even eat it all, but I kept my bunny hostage.
I've got my hand up.
Oh, who's got their hand up?
Amanda. No, it's just to say it's great. It's just trying to take it all in again, isn't it? And get back on the water and have another go, really. I don't know what question I've got.
I realised there was a lot of information in there, but I think the key message I would take away from you is there's a lot of concepts gone in, but you can try these things out in deep water, well away from any other boats, and things like try lifting the centerboard up and see the effect of it. That's really useful. Come back to the 5 essentials. That's dagger board, which I just mentioned. Trim, in other words, move your weight fore and aft and just see how the boat reacts to that under different circumstances. Obviously, balance is pretty obvious. I think you're doing that instinctively. But yes, try these things. There's never a boring moment on the water. If you can be given a list by Martin. I'm sure you will be given a list by Martin of what to do. But there are other things as well to try.
And I'm also getting.
No, we just need some nice weather to have a go now.
Yeah, can't help you there, I'm afraid. It's going to be a barbecue summer.
Yeah.
That's fatal.
Oh, dear. No, it was really good.
Okay.
Thank you.
No worries.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions, hopefully I sort of preempted a lot of other people's questions as well. I'll just say an enormously big thank you to Rob.
That's right.
I'm recording this, so I shall try and put it on YouTube. I'll let everybody know, and if Rob sends me links to the videos as well, that'd be
I
good.
tried to, and I did until like 7. And then I came into my room and played on my.
There's somebody unmuted that's talking amongst themselves, but never mind. So yeah, so hopefully see everybody on the water soon. Sue, is there anything you want to say?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
You.
Okay.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Bye.
Oh, I see. So Daddy's dropped you off. Oh, right.
Thank you.
Cheers. Right. End it.